Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek program here at the Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake. I'm the Education Assistant here at the Arboretum. Today we are in the Asian Valley of the Arboretum because it is close enough to our horticultural field lab where we store all of our wonderful plants that go out into our gardens and also all the wonderful plants that we have for our rare plant auction that is going on right now. Today we've got Mark Weathington here in the garden. He's our director and he's going to show you some of the plants from our rare plant auction that he is excited about and he'd like to tell you a little bit more about. Okay, and with the announcements out of the way, I think we can pass things over to Mark to show off some of these rare plants.
All right. I hope everybody has been to our website and has looked at the auction plants, is bidding on the auction plants. I won't mention which ones I'm bidding on because I don't want people to feel like they shouldn't bid on those. But it is pretty exciting. We've got some people who are really going hard at some of the plants. But we just added new plants today. We'll be adding more plants on Friday. We'll probably hit 400 or so plants. And a lot of them are really, really exciting new things. So I'm just going to talk about a few. I grabbed a few of the new ones that just went up today to talk about, but this is just a sampling. This is number 285 if you're playing along with the auction site, an Illicium, anise, and this one is Kogane Fuji. Kagani Fuji has this kind of creamy white outline to the leaf. As the summer goes on, it becomes more white, less kind of creamy yellow. So it even brightens and intensifies over the summer. This is one of the Asian Illiciums or star shrubs or anise plants. Makes a beautiful evergreen shrub. In spring, it'll have little kind of star-shaped flowers that are white, but with a little bit of pink tinge. It seems like every one of the variegated Illicium anisatums always have that bit of pink to the flowers. Makes a beautiful plant. You can grow it in sun. You can grow it in part shade. And for a lot of our gardeners out there, the most important thing about this is deer don't eat it. It's one of the best things about most of the anise shrubs is deer won't eat them. So Illicium anisatum Kogane Fuji. And as we're going, feel free to type in questions. At the end, you can unmute yourself and ask questions. They'll be relayed to me by Blake while I'm going. Okay, another late addition that I added to the auction, kind of last minute. Sometimes I go through the nursery and I say, oh, we should let people have a chance to have that, is this Phlomis chrysophylla, number 324. Phlomis are this amazing group of plants. They look like, lamb's ears or a fuzzy-leafed sage, something like that, except for they are woody shrubs, woody-based shrubs with these soft tops. They'll grow into 3 to 4 foot tall by as wide or wider plants if you let them go. They want full sun, pretty well-drained soil, although I grow mine in pretty average soil and water them if I water the rest of my garden, they get water too, but they are very, very drought tolerant. Now, these tender, fuzzy leaves are, believe it or not, completely winter hardy. This is a zone 5 plant, so it is fine, much colder than us, and they look just like this all winter long. It is the weirdest looking evergreen plant for the garden. There are several species. Many look very similar. The most common one you'll see is Phlomis fruticosa. This chrysophylla has a little bit more yellow to the hairs, especially the young hairs as it grows. So you'll get a little bit of yellowish to it as opposed to just the pure kind of blue-green. In the spring, once it gets old enough, it'll have these whorls of just vivid gold flowers that go up the stems. Really a beautiful plant. Don't know why they're so underused. Well, I take that back. I know exactly why they're so rarely available. It's because you have to be careful in a nursery setting because they're easy to overwater and rot when they're sitting in little plastic pots like this. Once you get them in the ground, as long as you're not putting them right into our red clay here, they do great. And I should mention, as I'm talking about the auction, we will ship any plants that are smaller than a 1 gallon size container and shorter than 3 feet tall. So it notes in the auction if it's not shippable, but we will ship anywhere in the lower 48 contiguous states. No Alaska or Hawaii, unfortunately. All right, I've got a couple that I'm going to see if Blake has any thoughts on when I talk about these. This is number 258, Distylium racemosa Yatsufusa, also known as, it used to be called Fuganami Pixie. Fuganami was the nursery it came from, but we figured out the true Japanese name, which is Yatsufusa. Now, you may be familiar with Distyliums. Those are becoming one of the most ubiquitous garden plants around, evergreen shrubs. There's linebacker and copper cone, and I can't remember them all. Emerald Heights, Blue Falls, Emerald Fall. There's a whole bunch of them, and they're big evergreen shrubs, kind of nice but unusual. Our friend of the Arboretum gave me this plant. I'm looking through the plants that he had given us for this auction, and I thought this was a little tiny spruce, a little picea, but it's a Distylium. You can plant this in the open garden. Probably want to put it somewhere where you won't step on it, maybe next to a stone or something, but also great in a container. And I think most people know, I think that Blake, most of you join us regularly at least, might know Blake is a bonsai lover. What do you think? Bonsai worthy?
For sure. So I personally believe that bonsai is more about the process than the end result. But if you're a beginner for bonsai and you would like a tiny little tree immediately, that's a great choice. Just put it in as small a pot as you feel comfortable keeping watered, and you got already a nice, cute little tree for you.
So would you, if you did that, would you thin it out and open it up a little bit?
It's never a bad idea. Whenever you're pruning in bonsai, the thought is you're opening it up to let in more light and more airflow always. So opening it up, never a bad idea.
All right. And Distyliums will grow sun to part shade. Another one, if you're a beginner bonsai and want something that's going to look a little bit odd and stay small and be easy, is this... it's still in my head. I want to call them Pansiris, the hardy orange. They've moved it all to citrus now. So citrus trifoliata baby dragon. So many of you may know the hardy orange, the flying dragon, which gets a big not evergreen, but a big green-stemmed citrus plant, has fragrant white flowers, followed by kind of I don't know what's this size, jawbreaker, bouncy ball, or any of those things still exist. Smaller, a little smaller than a golf ball sized oranges. Not good to eat, very bitter. Number 236. But this is an extreme dwarf of that plant. Just a little tiny thing, dwarf of flying dragon. And so everything that grows on it is contorted and twisted, and it'll tie itself in knots. I have not actually seen baby dragon flower and fruit, so I won't guarantee fruit on it, but it is just this wonderful, bizarre little plant. Hardy in his own 6B, really, so pretty hardy. And I've mentioned I don't like having things in pots because I don't water them at home, but this is a great plant for putting in a little container. You can leave it out over the winter without worrying about it too much. Just make sure you keep it watered. But you can also put it in the ground. But again, you want to put it somewhere where it's you're going to remember it's there because it's one of the really odd things about it is the roots contort as much as the top, and so they can get overly contorted together and not root out, and so it can be, you can see in the pot it's a little bit floppy, and that's because of those roots doing that. Doesn't seem to hurt the plant long term though, so not a real problem. But you know, and it's mostly green stems, and you can see it's got some little green leaves coming off of it. It's such a bizarre little plant. Love it. I don't know why anybody wouldn't be bidding on that. Okay, a few that people sometimes think they can't grow here. First is 102 Mahonia fremontii. So, I love Mahonias. They were one of JC's favorite plants. And Mahonias are odd. They grow in Asia. They grow on the west coast of the U.S. They grow in the Southwest, and then they grow in Central and South America. And they're very different depending on where they grow. Mostly the Asian and kind of Pacific Northwest ones are all kind of the same group. Our Southwest U.S. and Northern Mexico are one group, and then the South American, Central and South American are a different group. The southwestern U.S. ones are spiny things. They are always real spiny, often with this silvery blue foliage. I'm probably not wearing the best shirt as a backdrop for this, but this really blue foliage. They'll have yellow flowers and then red fruits. I think fremontii has red fruits, possibly black, but I think they go from red to black. This makes a great little open shrub for full sun, well-drained soil. Not a shade-loving Mahonia like some of the other ones. It wants full blazing sun. It's really kind of a desert plant. This is a plant that was actually Tim Alderton was on a trip out west and brought seed back of this. So we're really excited to have good wild seed-grown material, because those tend to be a little bit healthier than if you keep getting them from the same cultivated source. And it's also helpful because Mahonia fremontii and our southwestern Mahonias can be difficult to root, unlike a lot of other Mahonias. So really excited about this. The flowers on most of the southwestern species smell kind of like chocolate when they flower. I'm not 100% sure with fremontii because I haven't grown it as much as I've grown some of the other ones like hematocarpa. But awesome little plant. If I were to win this in an auction, I would plant it out, but you may want to grow it in a container for a while. If you do that, I would grow it in an unglazed terracotta pot, because those, you don't have the water build up, the moisture build up as much inside, and it doesn't like to sit too wet. Okay. Got my last two of the little guys to talk about, and these are ones that when you talk to people, they'll tell you you can't grow, at least here. Number 131, this is a primrose. This is Primula marginata amethyst. These type of primrose, the marginatas and the auriculatas, don't love our heat and humidity. But I have been having some real success with both of these, especially Primula marginata. And you can see marginata has these kind of toothed leaves. They often have a little bit of white or yellow around them. They'll come out kind of fuzzy, but they lose that fuzziness as they start to grow. What I always did wrong with these is I tried to plant them in really pretty moist soils. And what I've found is they don't want to dry out, but they really prefer being planted in a relatively well-drained soil. In light shade. They don't want heavy shade. So what I have been doing with mine out in the garden is either planting them where they're kind of tucked up under a rock, I love boulders in my garden. I don't have a rock garden, but have boulders. I tuck it under there. Or on a pretty steep slope where the water moves through, doesn't stay wet. And I've had Primula marginata, including this one, Amethyst, going in my garden for, this is the third year now that it's survived. So it's gone through 3 summers, I should say. I have some Primula auriculata, which we also have in the auction, that have gone through 2 summers now. But the key is that light shade and either a nice slope or really planting them around a rock where the water kind of goes around them and doesn't sit on them. They're also great in containers. If you do them in a container, or in a lot of, probably helpful in a lot of gardens, is to mulch underneath it with some stone chips or something like that to keep the organic matter of your mulch and soil when it rains bouncing up on the leaves. That helps a lot with a lot of these plants. Now, another one that I don't know for sure how it's going to do long term is this Cycads. Cycads are some of the most primitive plants. These were around when the dinosaurs were around. So number 165, Zamia lucaya. We got a bunch of seed of this of some different Cycads, including this Zamia lucaya from colleagues of ours down in South Florida at another botanic garden. I asked them to send me any seed of any palms or cycads that they thought might be hardy. They have no idea what's hardy and what's not. And so they sent us things that we knew were not going to be hardy, but, you know, I'm always willing to try. So I took home last summer seedlings. So they were, you know, almost a year younger than this seedling, but out of the same batch. I took home a couple to plant in my garden. I lost one over this past winter, but one of them did not miss a beat. I've got it planted in high shade and again on a bit of a slope, so the cold air kind of moves through. High shade kind of keeps the warmer air in during the winters. And it's coming back. It has not missed a beat. It actually didn't even kill all the fronds on there. And most of my other cycads, even the ones that are doing well, it killed all the fronds back, and they're just now leafing back out. But mine at home looks basically as good as this does. Now, the other one that was planted in a more open spot is dead. It's gone. It's dead. Good drainage is key for almost all cycads, so make sure you have good drainage wherever you plant it. But I really think that 7B, it may be okay there, which would be a real surprise for us for this one. All right, can't do an auction without talking about my beloved Osmanthus. This is a one that was new to me. We've distributed one called Kagani Fuji, which comes out white, or it comes out hot pink and then goes white and then green. This one, which we just have the name Kogane on it, which is not, that just means yellow in Japanese. It probably has a real Japanese name that we're going to be trying to figure out, but we don't know it yet. This one, I'm told, we haven't grown it yet, comes out burgundy and goes to a yellow, and then more of a green as the season progresses. Same super fragrant white flowers, I assume, but again, haven't seen it flower. I'm really excited about this plant just because it's a new Osmanthus for me. Now, all of these types that flush out with white or yellow or things like that, they tend to not look great in a container. They tend to not look great their first year in the ground. It really takes to about their second spring in the ground that they really start showing what they're going to do. So it'll be a little bit before even we know what's going to happen with this, but we're excited about it.
And
now,
what number is that?
This is 198, and we have 2 Kogane Osmanthus in the auction. There's another one, Osmanthus heterophilus Kogane. Osmanthus heterophyllus has a spiny holly-like leaf, and it is a very gold plant. It flushes out in the spring gold, greens up a bit over the summer, but is a beautiful gold plant. Okay. All right, this is number 317. This is a maple. This is a hedge maple, Acer campestri carnival. And you can see why it gets that name. It's got these really beautifully variegated leaves, that bright white edge around the green. The hedge maples, Acer campestri, they're known as super tough plants, very cold hardy, very easy to grow. Whenever you have something that's this variegated, that, sometimes can make plants a little bit more miffy, as the English say. But we don't find carnival to be difficult at all. Now, in full blazing sun, you can get some leaf burn on there if the soil's dry. So I say really morning sun or part shade, you're going to be best with this. One of the things that I really like as a plant lover, without enough room for all the plants I want to grow, is Carnival is a pretty small growing hedge maple, probably 8 to 12 feet tall, fairly tight and dense, not wide spreading like you get with some of them. So it doesn't take up as much room in your garden as some other variegated trees or other hedge maples. Fall color is always nice on hedge maples. So with this, what you'll typically get is it'll go red, but with this variegated foliage, what that means is you'll get red burgundy in the center where the green is, and then hot pink along where the white is. And it also, I should say, in the spring flushes out with a lot of pink in the foliage as well. Beautiful plant. All right. Japanese maples. Wouldn't be an Arboretum auction without Japanese maples, and we have some cool ones like Black Hole and Black Lace, Fairy Hair, some great ones, some that are really hard to get a hold of usually. This is, as you can see, a weeper. One called Golden Falls Japanese Maple, number 206, if you want to know that. And it comes from our friends out in Pacific Northwest, Buckholtz and Buckholtz, Talon Buckholtz, who's just one of the most knowledgeable plantsmen, especially around Japanese maples around. So this one is different from most other weeping Japanese maples in that, one, very few weeping Japanese maples have the regular Japanese maple leaf. Most are cut leaf ones, dissected leaf ones. This one has the full leaf, but it also comes out in spring kind of light gold. It's not screaming gold, but in the fall, it really turns this incredible, rich gold fall color. So Golden Falls. Now, it is what we call a strict weeper, which means it goes down. It does not go up at all. Some weeping plants will go up and then out. So what you'd really need to do with this is, if you wanted it to go taller, you would have to start training some branches to go up, or you could maybe get something bent. I've even seen people plant it a little bit at an angle to get it a little easier to go up. I would probably just try and start with something young and train it up. Give it a couple of years, it'll go. Or you can put it in a hanging basket. You can put it in a container on top of a wall or whatever. I've got a different weeping one, a Raulston, in a tall narrow container. I say I don't grow many containers, but I'll put trees sometimes in containers. I've got it in a taller container, letting it weep over. It's actually gotten too it's gotten down to the bottom now. So what I'm trying to do is find some sort of pillar or post that I can raise my pot up on, so it can keep going down like that. They're a lot of fun, and I have actually seen big, really big hanging baskets. People have these weeping Japanese maples hanging from, if you got a big porch or a big limb out in your woods or something like that.
That's a great idea, and I completely condone that behavior.
Yeah.
Real quick, though, Marilyn's asking, do the bare stems and branches of Golden Falls have any color in winter?
I don't think so. Well, I have no idea. This was a new one for us that we got, so I don't know.
Sure.
Usually you can tell by looking at this, even though the stems wouldn't be their brightest right now, it really doesn't look like they're going to be bright. Maybe the youngest of the young stems will have some red or orange, but I don't think so. All right. Oh. Now another one that I have been told we can't grow here. Don't say that if you come visit my house, because I have a nice one that's been growing for several years, and I don't want it to hear that it can't grow for us here. This is a form of the dove tree, Davidia involucrata. This is one called Ayanishki, and Ayanishki has this pale green border around the leaf. Sometimes it'll do weird things where it'll have dark green, pale green, light green in the middle. The dove tree is one of the plants that an expedition by Ernest Wilson to China, it was undertaken strictly for this plant. He was told, don't bother with other things. Everything else worth collecting has been collected. Just get us that dove tree. The nursery he was working for was wrong about that, but the dove tree is this amazing plant where the flowers, the bracts on the flowers, there's two of them, a long one and a short one, and they look like doves, hence dove tree, sitting in the tree when it flowers. It's sometimes called, by the less romantically inclined, the handkerchief tree for the same reason. They do take a long time to come into flower, though, most, and including this. Often it takes it a decade to come into flower. But who cares with this one, because this foliage is amazing. Now, I've got mine at home that's been doing well, planted in a pretty sunny spot at the top of a hill. It's rich soil, but it drains well. And I planted it a little bit high. These tend to go down from some root rots and things like that when we lose them. And so I planted it high, like I would a rhododendron, where really the crown of the plant is really above soil level, and I just mulched right up to that, but it isn't covered in soil. And it has been fine that way. It's really grown quite well and looks good right now. No problems at all. So I'd recommend, well drained and planting high. I think that's the key. All right. And now for something completely different. I was so excited when one of our supporters and colleagues, Tim Brotzman at Brotzman Nursery in Ohio, they're a wholesale nursery, so don't go try and buy plants from them. They're not retail. Sent me a list of some special things that they had that they might be able to send to us, and things that aren't on their regular list for all the other wholesale nurseries that are big nurseries that they sell to. They know we like the cool stuff, and it was this plant. Now, this is one of our native trees. This is number 328, Clodrastus kentuckya. That's yellowwood. This one's called Sweet Millie. And I had never heard of this thing. There's basically no information on it online. In fact, Dennis Carey, who was writing, and Blake, who were writing a lot of the descriptions, I think their description originally read, a plant from Bossman Nursery in Ohio. We don't know anything about it. I added today, I added that it's a weeping plant because we knew that.
Nice.
So yellowwood is one of the most criminally underutilized native trees we have. It makes this beautiful kind of pyramidal-headed plant when it's kind of medium to young. And when it flowers, it just has these long panicles of white flowers that are just like ice crystals hanging from it. Usually flowers kind of mid-spring. And it is so spectacular in flower. The problem with them is that as young plants, they're awkward. They tend to be kind of not well branched, sparse. They've got these pinnate leaves, long pinnate leaves, and they just look kind of, awkward. And it takes several years, even if you get a big plant, it takes a few years for it to really start looking like a nice form tree. But when it starts flowering, oh my gosh. I was just up at Virginia Tech giving a couple talks there this past weekend, and they have been planting yellowwood all over the place, and they're nice and big, and they were past flowering. But I'm going to go back up. I'm going to make a special trip up there just to see these, rows and alleys of yellowwood in flower. So going back to Sweet Millie. Sweet Millie is a weeper. Seems to be a good weeper. It looks, based on how the stem is growing a little bit, that I'm sure that it was staked up when young. It was shipped to us, so the top was cut off so it would fit in the box. If you wanted it to go taller than this, you just kind of get this and start staking it up, or staking something like this upright, and it'll keep going up, and every time it branches, it'll weep out. Now, Bossman has done a great job of kind of already getting this into a good structure for a weeping plant. The branches are pretty evenly spaced and not all in one plane. It's nice and full. I assume the flowers will be the same as others, and since this is a grafted plant, I would expect it to start flowering relatively young. I would think you might get a flower or two next year, a panicle or two, probably not a whole lot, but then in another 2 years, 3 years, it's really going to start being just this showpiece of flowers just dripping from it. Sweet Millie. So, do we have questions? I'm willing to answer questions about these. Happy to answer questions about our auction in general. Happy to answer questions about other plants that are in the auction now.
We don't have any questions currently, but you are all welcome to unmute yourselves and ask questions should you have them, or you can just drop them here in the chat. I assume most of you are just on the auction page, bidding on plants right now, and you're too focused on that to even worry about asking questions. And that is totally fine. That is well within your right. Okay, we've got one. So Sue's asking, is the Primula deer resistant?
Is the Primula deer resistant? None of my Primula have been eaten by deer at my house. Lots of other things have, but they've gotten lazy at my house. Anything that sits that close to the ground, they don't bother with, They have to bend over too far. They seem to like everything in my garden at, 18 inches to 36 inches. So the rabbits haven't touched it either, and I've got a lot of rabbit problems as well.
Okay. All right, so Marilyn's asking, don't know if it's rabbits or deer, but I have to, she's saying, don't know if it's rabbits or deer, but I have to protect my primula in my garden. And for those of you who don't know, Maryland has the biggest deer problem in the history of deer problems. You give her any sort of plant that deer aren't going to eat, and the deer will eat hers. It's just a function of the neighborhood where she's in. There's been a lot of development, so there's a huge density of deer in this area, and it's just way too much deer, so they're gonna eat everything, really.
And I should correct, I am speaking specifically Primula marginata and Primula auriculata. Primula vulgaris, they've eaten some a little bit, I think more rabbits than deer. But they haven't eaten my Primula sieboldii or Kissoana either, so.
Okay. Well, I think if that's all the questions we have for today, then I think that we can just call this one here. So
excellent. I know people are bidding because I have 3 plants that I was bidding on that I've been overbid on.
Oh, geez. Ain't that
only 2 of them that are out here. Knew I shouldn't have talked about the ones that I wanted.
There's still time to get them back. Oh, no worries.
I know.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for pulling this together and talking about all these plants with us. Thank you, everybody.
One thing before you say goodbye that I don't remember if you said or if I said, 3 o'clock Saturday is when the auction closes. So 3 o'clock Saturday.
So you're going to want to make sure you're in the auction at 2 o'clock Saturday, because that's when everything's going to start to spike. And that's when you're going to make sure you need to snag the things that you really want. So be there at 2 o'clock. And thank you so much for joining us here for this midweek program today. Next week, we will be back here. We will be doing a special presentation about our corpse flower wolfgang. We will have Diane Mays out here to talk all about Amorphophalli. Is that the plural for I'm going to go ahead and say Amorphophalli. There it is, plural for Amorphophallus. So hope you all will join us for that next week. We'll see you all then. Take care.